Salam, shalom, and peace, everyone. My name is Enes, the moderator of the program tonight, and welcome to our annual Ramadan program in collaboration with Peace Science Institute and Congregation and Mishkan Israel of Hamden. Yes, it is still virtual, but I hope it happens our last virtual event for this year, and I also hope next year we gather together in person. In 2020 and 2021, as Peace Science Institute, we hosted many other virtual Ramadan events, and people showed interest to learn more about fasting in different religions and about the environment and atmosphere of this blessed month for Muslims. We have distinguished speakers tonight and very special family with us. But before introducing them, we have a Ramadan video about fasting and Ramadan, and then we will watch Congressman Jahana Hayes' Ramadan video message for you, and then let's watch them together.
Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar dedicated to fasting, and fasting is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Each day during this month, from dawn to sunset, Muslims all over the world abstain from eating, drinking, smoking, and other bodily desires. Fasting is intended to discipline a believer's spirituality, humility, and patience. Ramadan is a time to cleanse the soul, to focus on God, and to practice selflessness. Ramadan is also the month in which the Quran, the holy book of Islam, started to be revealed for the first time. The journey of fasting starts with the sahur, the pre-dawn meal. Fasting opens the doors of deep contemplation as the believer realizes his blessings. Fasting is not only about the stomach, but also the heart and the mind. Muslims should refrain from blameworthy thoughts and acts, an example, foul language, vain talk, and hurtful behavior. As one believer explains,
I did not even realize what a wonderful blessing water is. Since I have easy access to water and everything I eat, I did not appreciate them properly. Now, in the voluntary absence of them, I value and appreciate your bounties. Thank you, O Lord, for everything you bestowed upon us. I thought I was strong and not dependent on anything. Now, look how weak and needy my body has become. I am in desperate need of water and food. Without them, I cannot exist and survive. I am weak, O Lord. I need you and your sustenance to survive. Thank you for reminding me of my weakness and your greatness through fasting. I do have a desperate desire to eat and drink, but because I am fasting, I cannot follow my urges. I have to control myself and should not let my craving control my soul and body. Now I am in between my flesh and God's commands. Fasting will allow me to have a stronger will. Thank you, O Lord, for showing me the way of controlling my desires and teaching me patience through fasting. How about the people who are suffering with hunger and thirst every day? The beggar of food on my way to work whom I neglect every day. Now I understand what they're going through every day. Thank you, O Lord, for reminding me my responsibilities to humanity through fasting. I will share more what I have. I will not waste, and I will appreciate my life.
Muslims not only increase their prayer, but also their charity, kindness, generosity, patience, and forgiveness in Ramadan. It is essentially a month of training used to discipline and prepare oneself for the remainder of the year. Ramadan ends with the festival of Eid al-Fitr, which is a day of celebration and gratitude.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Jahana Hayes from Connecticut's 5th Congressional District. Thank you so much for inviting me to your Ramadan Iftar celebration. Unfortunately, I was not able to log on using the link, but I have been watching along on YouTube, and I am so renewed and encouraged by all of what I'm hearing. Thank you to the Peace Island Institute of Connecticut for your commitment to charity, to our communities, and to really engaging each other to make sure that we are all working together for the betterment of our communities. I'm enjoying this program, and I look forward to reconnecting with you at a different date, at a later place, once we are out of this pandemic. But again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for inviting me to join you today.
We say thank you to Johanna Hayes. Yes, dear friends. Now let me introduce the speakers, special guests for tonight. Let me introduce first Rabbi Brian Immerman, the host of the program as well. Rabbi Brian joined congregation in Michigan, Israel in 2018 after serving as the associate rabbi at Temple Emmanuel in Denver, Colorado. Rabbi Immerman grew up in Shaker Heights, Ohio, where his family belonged to the Temple Iftar, Israel. He spent many summers at Goldman Union Camp Institute and worked as the program associate in the youth division of the Union for Reform Judaism in New York City prior to attending rabbinical school. Thank you for being host of this program tonight, Rabbi Immerman. Second special guest joining us tonight is Bishop John Selders, a musician as well as a third-generation preacher. The Right Reverend Dr. John L. Selders Jr. is an ordained minister serving in the United Church of Christ, the organizing pastor of Amistad United Church of Christ, Hartford, Connecticut, Assistant Dean of Students, member of the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, former Associate College Chaplain, Trinity College, Hartford, Connecticut, and one of the leaders of Moral Monday, Connecticut. Thank you for being here tonight, Bishop Selders. Other special guest joining us tonight is Imam Rifai Arifin. Imam Rifai has served for the past 8 years as Imam of the Islamic Association of Greater Hartford, in addition to performing duties as the Deputy Chaplain of the Connecticut State Legislature. He holds a BA from Brown University and has a JD law degree from Winnipeg University, and has served as adjunct professor at the Islamic Seminary of America. He has completed courses at Al Azhar University in Cairo, Al Balqa University in Amman, and with various scholars in Fez and Damascus. He has been active in interfaith work with several organizations, including the Connecticut Council for Interreligious Understanding and the Muslim Coalition of Connecticut. Thank you for being here tonight, Imam Rifai. And our last special guest is our Jewish family from congregation in Michigan, Israel. And we would like to say welcome all of you. Rabbi Brian, maybe you can introduce the family when the time comes, when the family turns to speak, when the floor is families. Is that okay, Brian?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. It's my honor to be with all of you. And I would like to thank again to Rabbi Brian and his congregation, Michigan, Israel, for hosting this event tonight. Dear friends, we are here tonight to celebrate the blessed month of Ramadan and to discuss the benefits of fasting. And not only, it has been a tough year for every one of us. One way or another, we were all impacted by this pandemic. And for that, we would also like to discuss the impact of COVID in the spiritual life of us. Without losing any time, I would like to start our Q&A session. Actually, I would like to follow traditional order. So Rabbi Brian, let me start with you. Rabbi Brian, taking your few words about fasting and Ramadan, the question is, what are your thoughts and reflections for this year of pandemic? How do you think COVID has impacted the religion and spiritual life of people? The floor is yours.
It's a big question for just a few minutes to ask a rabbi. And thank you so much for moderating. And it's a blessing to be with Pastor Selders and Imam Rifai. In a way that especially from that video, this idea of abstaining causing us to appreciate what we have during other times is certainly almost an ongoing theme of the COVID pandemic. Not being, especially as we embrace technology more and more, we think, well, maybe we could just do a remote service here and there. And then all of a sudden we're doing it every single week and missing so many aspects of being together with our community, seeing the full person's body, to be able to understand their body language and engaging with them and being able to hug and embrace. And it's been very challenging for our community. But in so many ways, it's highlighted how important community is and how important it is to seek and find and be a part of a meaningful, supportive community. One of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to Madeline, especially tonight with these themes, is because Madeline has really helped, as a member of the Board of Trustees, she's helped organize what we call our chesed community, which is, chesed means loving kindness in Hebrew. And through this effort, we've had dozens of volunteers reaching out multiple times throughout the year to people in our community to just check in, make sure they're doing okay, figure out what they need, help deliver food. And it's really highlighted why we're part of spiritual communities as opposed to just seeking out our own spiritual growth.
Thank you, Rabbi. And the same question goes to Bishop Selders. Thanks for being us, Selders. A few comments about Ramadan fasting, and the question is, what are your thoughts and reflections for this year of pandemic? How do you think COVID has impacted the religion and spiritual life of people?
Sure. Thank you again, it is my pleasure to be here with my spiritual family and leaders in faith traditions that serve God's people in the many settings. We said in the tradition I come from, we would say we are workers together in different vineyards, but doing the same kind of lifting and growing and nurturing. And so fasting and in particular this time of Ramadan, I've had Muslims in my family. So it was something they did. And so, you know, and I would say to you I grew up in the Pentecostal tradition of Christianity. And so we do a lot of things. I'll just say that Pentecostals do lots of things. One of the things we did on a regular basis in the particular tradition of Pentecost I was involved in, we had what they call fast days. And so we fasted what they would say a fasted life. And so every Wednesday and every Friday was National Fast Day. And so I grew up in the tradition of fasting. So for me, fasting, it has been important, and to know both that Muslims and Jews fast. I felt like I was it was a part of the family thing that you did when you recognize God in a certain kind of way. And I'll say more about what I think fasting means for us in the Christian context. But let me shift to the B part of your question and to talk about how the pandemic has impacted our communities. Like every community, we've had to not see one another. And of course, you can't anticipate what that actually means and what that does to one's spiritual sense. How much I like what you said, Rabbi, the body, seeing a person's body to check the feedback, it's hard to preach to this camera. I mean, of course, I've been accustomed to doing TV, a little bit of that, but that's one thing when you're doing an interview or a setting like this. But it certainly, as a Black preacher, I need a little amen. I need some feedback. And, if you're not talking at me, then I'm gonna be long and boring. So that has to grow accustomed to that. And for the last 13, now nearing 14 months, we've been not in our setting of worship in a physical building. So that's impacted us. Yet the needs have continued. I've done weddings, I've done funerals, and all of the pastoral commitments and responses that are local congregations and have need of. I've had to respond in ways, and I had to do that most of the time playing it by ear because there wasn't a book, there wasn't a resource. It's not written down. Thus should you do when in a pandemic. That's not in my holy book. I don't think it's in either about the Quran or the Hebrew Bible. I don't think it's there. So, how do you respond to this? You play it by ear, and the congregation lovingly embraces the way in which we all have to respond. I'll say lastly that there has been an impact of this moment for all of us. If you're not even in a tradition that gathers in spaces like those of us who are Christian, the Muslim, the Jewish, those of us in community, by and large, there has been a kind of cumulative effect. And so as we do what we do in community, whether that's going to the grocery store, looking at somebody's side eye when they cough around you, you go look, there is a reaction. Whether you do it or not, there's often a reaction to how do you know when to embrace somebody or when to touch somebody? I mean, it's all of that is going on all at the same time. And so it has meant then that we in the times when we gather together in spiritual community, some of the time we spend is just talking about and sharing with one another what that means and how the pandemic has impacted us. And it is okay to do what you feel comfortable with. That, you know, and there's kind of a reassuring sense that this will pass. This will pass. And I'll say that to all of us who are here now, it will pass at some point. I think we got to go through to get through.
Thank you, Ship Sellers. And Imam Rifai, the floor is yours.
Oh, sure. Well, first off, thank you so much, Anas, for the invitation. It's always a privilege and an honor to be a part of this amazing panel and to learn from other faith traditions. So I'm happy to be here. If I don't make sense, it's because they organized this at the end of the fasting day. So I'm going to blame it on that. You know, they always put me last. We always start with Judaism and Christianity, and I have to come up with some points that the rabbi and the bishop haven't mentioned, but I'll do my best, inshallah, God willing. So a little bit about fasting. You know, I think fasting transcends our individual faith traditions. It's something that's alluded to in the Quran. The very first verse that mentions fasting is kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. That fasting has been prescribed on you as it was prescribed to all of the prophets and generations that came before you. So fasting is not something that's new with Islam. This is a tradition that we've inherited because fasting is especially powerful, and it's all about engagement of the body, the mind, and the soul. So ultimately, it's all about mindfulness, self-discipline, focus. But there is a paradox that's built into fasting because fasting is about refraining from food, from drink, and from intimate relations, at least in the Islamic tradition. But what's ironic about it is that you're giving up things, but in reality, you should be focused on what you're gaining, right? And what you're gaining is that focus, devotion, and particularly that mastery over the ego. Another paradox is that fasting is deeply personal. There's a tradition from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that every action has a discrete reward except for fasting. So if you read the Quran, you're going to get a fixed amount of reward. But fasting is for me, and this is a divine tradition. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, is saying that God says, right? And God says that fasting is for me because there's something especially intimate about fasting. Nobody really knows. I could be speaking to you right now, and you know, in between when the other speakers are going, I could be breaking my fast, and no one would have any idea whether that's the case. But even though it's so intimate and so deeply personal, there's something very social about the month of Ramadan. And we see that, I think, in Christianity and in Judaism as well, which is that when you have people who, you know, in the Jewish tradition, for example, you know, which is a much longer fast, but a little bit different, and everybody's all marking that moment together, right? And in the Islamic tradition, the Iftar, in which everyone is breaking that fast together, that shared experience brings people a lot closer, especially where it's a moment of gratitude. And having others that you're surrounded with who are feeling the same feelings and experiencing the same experience, it really draws people closer. So to answer the second question about COVID, one thing that I would mention in addition to what's been said is that we often associate religion as occupying a physical space. So we think that Islam, okay, that's something that happens at the mosque, right? Christianity, that belongs in the church. But the reality is that faith is something that resides with you, right? So if faith is resigned to a specific space, then that should be the space of the heart, right? And we experienced that through the pandemic because basements, bedrooms became our mosques, right? That became a place of worship, even though typically we wouldn't use those spaces for that reason. Our cell phones became our way of connecting to worship. It became our window into the world. And what that proved, I think, to everyone, especially to myself, is that you don't need a certain dress in order to worship. You don't need a certain accessory in order to practice your faith. And that even though there was a sense of loss that we were disconnected from other people, as the weeks passed by, as the months passed by, human ingenuity and creativity allowed us to find new avenues. So even though we weren't physically together, what we discovered is that actually we don't need physical touch in order to be together, because we'd be together in spirit, we'd be together in supporting each other, and that religion is ultimately about connection, and that connection doesn't have to be physical, because we're not physically with God, and yet at the same time we are with him. And so if we can have that experience and relationship with God and the divine, then we can have that experience with each other without being in the same space. So
thank you, Imam. And we can continue with you, actually. How can fasting bring the people together, especially on these tough times, on this pandemic? We can follow. You can answer it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think fasting brings people together because, like I mentioned before, there's that shared experience, but there's also the joy of breaking the fast, right? So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the fasting person experiences two joys. So one joy at the time of breaking the fast, and a second one at the time of meeting his Lord or meeting her Lord. And so the idea is that there's a sense of accomplishment, especially at the holiday of Eid al-Fitr, that like, hey, we did it. It's like finishing summer camp together, you know, you're like, you know, you get the bumper sticker, you have the t-shirt, you know, I did Ramadan 2021. And I think that like initially we approach it with some trepidation, like, oh no, this month we're not going to be able to have those iftar parties. We're not going to be able to have our extended family and friends, our loved ones all together in the same space. But then when you reach the end of it, I think that shared experience does make people develop a stronger connection, especially in situations in which you have family members who aren't forced to eat together at the same time, right? And that's something that I've noticed, is that people have become super atomized. People have become they were already isolated before the pandemic. If you have teenagers in the house, you know, they treat the house like a hotel, right? They kind of come in, come out. You know, everybody's following a different schedule. When you're fasting, suddenly you're all waking each other up in the morning. You're having that suhoor meal. Perhaps you might be praying together, especially because of the pandemic, rather than going to the mosque. You know, you might have to brush up on some of that Quran because you need somebody in the family to lead the prayer, you know, dust off all those cobwebs and start practicing. And so there's always a silver lining to all of life's challenges. And by having those experiences, and one last thing that I'll mention is that it also allows people to develop more empathy. And I think we'll touch upon that later, for people who don't have that choice, you know, whether they're going to go without food. So I think having that shared experience, that shared challenge, is something that draws people together. You know, we often think that times of ease bring people closer. But my experience is that it's the opposite, that times of hardship and difficulty are what bring the hearts close together. And when that coincides with fasting, then it's even more profound.
Thank you, Imam. Thank you very much. Actually, I will turn back Bishop Selders and Rabbi Brian, and I will ask, how is fasting in Christianity and Judaism? But before asking, not only adults experiencing Ramadan, but also the kids are experiencing Ramadan, and they feel something about Ramadan. So we have a small video, and also we have a Muslim Turkish NBA player and his contest video. Let's watch those videos together, and then we will turn back to Bishop Selders.
I'm grateful because I live in a democratic society.
I am grateful for my family and friends.
Hey, I'm grateful this Ramadan because my friends, me, and my family are all healthy.
I am
grateful for my family and also for my mouse that I was able to buy, and I really enjoy using my mouse.
I'm very grateful that I have friends and family that make me laugh all the time. Whenever we get together, we always have loads of fun.
From Portland Trailblazers, and I just wanted to say I would like to thank you for inviting me tonight, and it's an honor to share Iftar meal with the Peace Island Institute and guests. Every year I welcome the month of Ramadan with an excitement since my childhood. I remember when I was 10, 11 years old, Ramadan was my mom's special meals, sahurs and iftars. It was all about food and family and gatherings. Ramadan means totally different to me now, because Ramadan is a journey, learning experience and opportunities to do good deeds. And every year, millions of Muslims try to be more sensitive and focused to do good deeds and catch and enjoy and spiritual vibe. And also, Ramadan is a self-discipline and self-control. To able to achieve that, we have to understand our body and soul. As an athlete, this is what I do every day to focus and do better. So please pray for our victory tonight. We have a tough game coming up, and I'll be fasting while playing. And once again, I wish you and your family Ramadan Mubarak. May Allah gives us the strength and fulfill the needs of this month, and Ramadan Kareem. And when this whole pandemic ends, I hope to see you and all your family at one of my games. And thank you guys for the support.
As you watched, everybody is experiencing fasting from their perspective. So, Bishop Selders, let's go on with you. Actually, how is fasting in Christianity, and how can fasting, what are practical things we can do through fasting to bring people in Christianity, Bishop Selders?
Sure. So just like with all of our traditions, when one says, how does something happen in your tradition, right? I always hesitate, because there's not one Christianity. There are many Christianities, the way they've been practiced over time, and the way they're practiced in different parts of the world, in different cultures. And okay, so having said that, here in the United States, there are hundreds of different reformations or denominations of Christianity. There's the Roman Catholic tradition, and then the big split is, are you Catholic or are you Protestant? Well, then within Protestantism, there are hundreds of different traditions of Christianity. So having said that, I can speak to the particular venue or location of the practice of Christianity for the people that taught me and nurtured me. And so fasting, we would say it like this: fasting meant practicing the presence of God in one's life. And I think that can resonate in the Muslim tradition and in the Jewish tradition. They may not use that same phraseology, but it is this idea of turning the plate down, all right, to focus on spiritual food. So the natural food is exchanged for the practice of what it might mean to think, reflect, and be nurtured by spiritual food. What you would hear from people in the tradition I grew up in. They would break fast, and then they would ask, "What did the Lord say to you?" Being interpreted. Because you've been in reflection, because you've been in prayer, because you've been being nurtured by spiritual food, if you will. The assumption is that at that place where God comes to meet you and where you go to meet God, there is a communication that's happening. Here's what's also wonderful, and thank you, Imam Rafi, that you said this. Here's the communal aspect of it. Then when you get together, you have testimony service in the tradition I grew up in, where you share what God has been saying to you, what Spirit has gifted you with in a kind of shared way. That the communal aspect of fasting then is the celebration that we get to talk about the words from God, the Rhema word, if you will, the right now present word that allows for our faith and the practice of that faith to be manifested in one's life, both one's individual life, and yes, it's deeply personal. You know, who's following me around? Do in Islam, do they have the fasting police? I don't think so. But right. And yet, you know, it is in that very personal way. It is how then do I, within authenticity and integrity, practice and then come out of that in the communing sharing of what it means to break the bread of life in a spiritual way. And so I would say, I think as over the different practices of Christianity, we might find some commonality there.
Thank you, Bishop Selders. And what about in Judaism, Rabbi Brian? And you can connect this question with introducing the family, because the family time they reached us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So in Judaism, fasting might be a little bit different because it's almost always communal. Sure, we're doing it on our own, but it's maybe a little bit more like Ramadan, but it's never for a full month like this. So the fast days that most, especially in our community, people are familiar with is Yom Kippur, when we fast for 25 hours. In the Torah, it says it's a fast of self-denial. We're abstaining from food, water, bathing, intimate relations, wearing leather, perfuming. And that's certainly intended to bring us closer to God. There's part of the Shema prayer, which affirms the oneness of God, which says, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. God is our God and God is one. The next blessing we always say after that is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. But during the rest of the year, we usually say it a little quieter under our breath so nobody can really hear. That's not our tradition in our congregation, but on Yom Kippur, because we are fasting and have elevated our souls and our spirits, it's the one time when we are supposed to be saying it out loud, right? We elevate ourselves, we bring on some of the angelic qualities into us as being messengers of God. There are some other fast days. So there are some other what we call minor fast days, which is more like the fasting of Ramadan, where you're fasting from sun up to sundown and abstaining for other reasons. And it's usually it's a mourning ritual. So we're mourning the destruction of the temple, or we're mourning the edict for like Esther fasted. So there's technically a fast right before Purim, right before we read the book of Esther. So there's some other fast days. The one other thing that just unique would be sometimes it can bring us closer to nature. For a very long time, and I don't know of any communities that still practice this, but there's a lot of Jewish literature about this. If the rains didn't come in the prescribed times in the fall after Sukkot, one would start to fast for first maybe one day and then take a break and then do another 2 days. And then again, sun up to sundown. And there's, it was a way of perhaps preserving food and letting it last longer, but also just connecting us to this natural cycle of saying, if something's wrong in the world, we do have it. We're currently in this period called the Omer, where we're counting the days between Passover and Shavuot, Christianity, the Pentecost, when we celebrate receiving the Torah. And it just so happens that there is a little bit of guidance for what happens during a plague. There was a plague that broke out in the school of Akiva because the students were arrogant and haughty, as we learn in the Talmud. And it actually, the fast broke on the 33rd day of the counting, which would have been on Friday. And again, the tragedy that happened on Mount Meron was a celebration of this breaking of the plague. But traditionally, it's also a time of abstaining from really joyous occasions, because we temper our joy because of the plague that erupted for Rabbi Akiva. And so it will be interesting decades, centuries, millennia from now to how we mark this time, perhaps even with a fast, as we remember all of those who were affected by this. But I love that idea that when you break a fast, you really come to know God and joy. There's nothing like eating very good food after you have abstained from eating food for a while. We usually customarily break our fast on Yom Kippur with some honey cake. So with that, I'm going to introduce our family. This is Madeline Ravitch, who serves on our board of trustees, her husband Scott, and their children Lilo and Bobby. And again, one of the reasons why I invited Madeline is to celebrate her. She's really took on this responsibility of helping to connect our congregation. And there are people who have been receiving food on a regular basis who are homebound because of the work that Madeline's done, and really embracing the idea of community and what does it mean. So we're going to be welcome to their beautiful home, and they're going to share with you. Tonight is not Shabbat, but we're going to
instead of fasting. Yeah, instead of fasting, please share about your tradition about Shabbat. It'll be a pleasure for us.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for opening your house for this program. Thank you very much. We are so happy that you opened your house for us tonight. Madeline, Scott, floor is yours.
We're honored to be here with you tonight, and the rabbi had asked us to just sing the prayers that we sing at Shabbat. So we set our table the way we normally do on Shabbat. We've got our Shabbat candles, wine, and a challah underneath us. So we'll just sing the prayers for you. So the first one we sing is the prayer over the candles. Ready, guys? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher tirshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'chad l'chner shalosh Shabbat. Which means, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to kindle the Shabbat light. And then we sing the prayer over the wine. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Amen. Which means, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And then finally, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Which is, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. So. And then we each tear off some challah and share our challah. And that's what we do before our Shabbat meals. So wishing you all a wonderful holiday, and thank you for having us join you for this wonderful occasion.
Thank you very much, Madeline. Such a nice atmosphere you have. Really very happy to such a lovely family. And thank you very much, Madeline, for your experiences and for your feelings. Scott, would you like to say something about... would you like to add something?
No, I think I will say one thing is that we're an interfaith household, and so it's been an introduction for me to learn about Judaism, and I think Mishkan has been a particularly nice place to do that. It's just a very welcoming community for households like ours.
Thank you very much. I hope we gather in person for future, for Ramadan programs, for Shabbat Iftar dinners. We would like to join your meal one day. Thank you again. Okay, thank you. Dear friends, we have two more videos right now, art videos. One of them will be about calligraphy video, and the other one will be about piano recital, one of our kids. So we will watch the videos and then we will turn back to the speakers again.
And I'm from Connecticut. I'm going to be playing piano and I'm going to play the Turkish march. Now I'm going to be playing my second piece, which is for Elise. Hi, my name is Ensa and today I'll be playing Morning. sing a duet, and it's called In the Hall of the Mountain Kings. You might recognize this tune from Trolls. Happy Ramadan!
I'm sorry. Maybe you didn't hear me. Thank you very much to Madeline and Scott's family, and Lilo and Bobby and Ansar and Alif as well. The kids will be our future, so it's very important for them as well. Experiencing Shabbat, experiencing fasting and breaking fasts, Ramadan, it's very important. And we will turn to Bishop Selders to say our last words and one more question, and maybe with the prayer, you can connect all of them. How are, Bishop Selders, your religious institutions adapting to these changes to serve the needs of the community? You can answer and you can finish with the prayer, because it will be our last words.
All righty. So I think as we move through this time, right? This time that we've already said has been a challenging time for us to figure out how to do what we do differently, to gather in new ways. Some of us didn't know anything about a Zoom, but we do now, right? And I don't know about my fellow clergy persons and people leading in congregations, but my folk have said, listen, this has been great. I get to have you in my living room right there. You preaching to me in my living room. I don't have to get up. I don't have to do anything. I don't know how I don't know how we're going to go back to something, because of that. I think what I think we've been called to is to serve in different ways, to find new ways, new synapses, if you will, of service and of worship and of kinship, finding new ways to be a part of people's lives. It certainly has called for us to figure out how we do employ the giftings, what we've been gifted to have and receive, then how we share that with others, and how we do that, most often with other folk. Because of COVID, we weren't able to do the sharing in the way we would normally do it. So we would have to then now reach out to folk who are providing that kind of service and do those kinds of things in a new and different way. And what I'm excited about actually is what will spirituality and service in faithful ways mean as we move out of this time. As we now have figured out, we've made new connections potentially. We have invoked old connections and old ways of doing things in new ways, right? So there's a gospel story of Jesus, and he says, listen, how can we serve new wine in old wineskin, right? So I believe we've now had to access new wineskin, right? Now we got the wine is there. Now we've got to figure out a way to do something that we've done historically, in one way. Now we've got to find a new way to do it to meet the same need differently. And it is my prayer then. It is my prayer that the Almighty, that the divine will allow all of us in a fresh way to encounter the divine in our lives May God be revealed to us in fresh new wineskin. May we take what has been gifted to us and given us, and may we, in fact, use those giftings to provide help, nurture, care, love, regard in the communities, not only the ones close to us, dearest to us, the ones known to us, but also those communities that are different, far away, on the margin, in spaces and places that are not necessarily convenient for us to be in. May we find God there as well.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Sellers. Thank you very much for your kind words and for your prayer. And Imam Rifai, the floor is yours. You can answer the question with the prayer.
Sure. We've been having the same experience. And I think we had one advantage, which is that just a few months before the pandemic, we were already having that conversation that we need to reach young people. There's some demographics that are underserved. And how do we speak their language, right? How do we talk about the issues that affect them? And understand that our religion is not confined to the mosque. I mentioned that before, that Islam has something to say about social justice. That's something that young people demand. In the past, most of our congregation assumed that, okay, well, those are political issues, and that they don't have a place in the mosque, in a place of worship. But I think people view the role of religion much more holistically now, and young people definitely do. They want us to talk about things that affect them, that are outside of that quote unquote religious domain, and are more into the social framework. And having access to those platforms, Zoom, social media, Instagram. We don't have a TikTok yet. Maybe I need to work on that. But we're everywhere else, where the people are, and that's been humbling. That's been humbling for myself, and I think for many clergy members, to understand that we can't wait for people to come to us, and that we don't need all of the trimmings that come along with being a faith leader. That we need to come to the people and show empathy and show accessibility to them, that we're with them in whatever it is that they're experiencing. If it's a good times, we're there to celebrate. If they're going through a tough patch, that we're there to support them. And if it's something that everybody's experiencing, then we can commiserate. Whether that happens on Zoom or whether it happens on social media, it's really important for us to be part of the life of the congregation in a way that's not just linked to our place of worship. And so based on that and what I said before about worshiping God in an intimate way, in a new way, experiencing that relationship with God that we saw in Arabic, we say that, the word for prayer is salah. So salah comes from connection, we saw. So we were doing prayer, but our prayer was devoid of connection. So my prayer for today is that God instills in us the ability to experience worship as if we see God. And although that won't necessarily happen, at least in this world, I pray that the knowledge that God sees us is going to be the means through which we taste and experience sweetness in our worship. As Bishop Selder says, let's experience that spiritual food together. So as we get close to the time of breaking fast, I hope that not only will you quench your thirst for water and satisfy your hunger, but may you also satisfy your spiritual hunger and quench your desire to experience that closeness and intimacy with God.
Amen. Thank you very much, Imam. And Rabbi Brian, the floor is yours. We don't hear you.
I haven't said anything. It's hard to go after the two of you. A lot of beautiful teachings, and I think that one of the things that I look forward to most about this program every year is just getting to be and highlighting the fact that we have so much in common as we seek to connect each other and bring out the best in each other and in our world. I think very, very early on, kind of going after what you both said about finding God, very early on in the pandemic, I remember somebody called me in tears saying, "Rabbi, where is God in this? Like, how could God do this to us?" And I kind of was taken aback. I paused. As a Reform rabbi, people don't often call me with theological questions. Usually it's more practical. I loved it. Please do it more often. And what, after I paused, I thought, this isn't, I don't believe that my God is doing this. God created the world, and God created us to partner with God to create a better world, and to finish the job and make the world filled with shalom, wholeness, and peace. And I said, I don't think you're going to find God if you're looking in things like a pandemic or a war. You're not in the destruction. Where we find God is in the repair. We find God in all of the outpouring of hope and donations that people made to help those who were most affected in the first days. God is in every single time that somebody puts on a face mask, knowing that it's not to protect them, it's to protect it. It's less about protecting them than it is about protecting others. Every time somebody chooses to stay home to help protect somebody else, or use a drive-through instead of going in, that God exists in the phone call to say, "Are you doing okay?" or in the chalk messages that were filling our streets last year. God is in the people volunteering and going and sometimes even risking their own lives to feed others and take care of others. And I think so that's where I saw God, and that's where I continue to see God during the pandemic. And again, early on, when we thought this was only going to last 3 months, silly us, I continued to say, we're not going back to what was. I don't want to go back to what was. I want to go back to what will be. Right? That's the message that all religions bring, is the message of what potential. And I want those beautiful aspects of our community to continue. I want us to continue to spend more time giving to the people that we know, to the people that we don't know, those who are marginalized, and sharing our gifts and our light with them. So our prayer is that we continue to find that strength, to cultivate it, to nurture it, to say we have an opportunity as a human race right now to really reflect the best of what our world can be. And I hope that we continue to it's a gift that we've been given, and I hope that we use it carefully to make our world a better place for everybody. So I really appreciate the sacred time that we've gotten to spend together. And yes, thank you so much for moderating and really helping to make sure that this evening happens. And God willing, inshallah, we'll be together again in person at CMI, hosting you all, breaking bread together.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian, for your nice words, kind words. And actually, personally, I had amazing time, and then everybody watching enjoyed this time as well. So God bless everyone, and thank you again for joining us, for being with us, Scott, Madeline, Lilo, Bobby, and Imam Rifai, Bishop Selders, Rabbi Brian. Thank you very much. We will finish the program with a Zen video, call to prayer video, but the time hasn't been yet. So for the Muslim families, don't break your fast. Still continue 20 more minutes. And if there are any mistake, I'm the guilty. I'm sorry about the technical issues if something happened, because I'm also the technician of the program. So sorry about for the technical issues. So I hope we gather in person for our next programs. So I would like to invite Imam Rifai, Bishop Selders again. Actually, Imam Rifai will move to another state. Imam Rifai, would like to say something about that? Congratulations because of your new position, new job.
I started last month, but
really?
I
Wow.
wanted to be here so much. So I'm pretending to still be the imam at Berlin. But I've started in Potomac, Maryland. But I think my roots in Connecticut are so deep, it's going to be hard to kind of detach myself. So you'll probably see me again.
Yeah, we will find you definitely.
And if anybody's coming to Maryland, you're all welcome. It's the Islamic Association Community Center of Potomac. Definitely Rabbi Immerman and Bishop Selders and all of the guests tuning in by YouTube. If you're in town, you're all welcome to come and visit.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to say thank you to our audience for being with us tonight. Thank you very much for everyone watching us or will watch later. Happy Ramadan and Ramadan Kareem. We will finish our program with Azan video. Have a wonderful day. See you. Take care.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة